Hello YouTubers, I want to welcome you to new album releases, and I'm pleased to announce that this is a world exclusive, just in the sense that I recently completed my 394th album, and I'm going to basically upload it this evening for distribution. Okay. Now, for those who aren't familiar with my music and my approach to music, is basically I'm a guitarist who uses guitar and guitar loops done on the fly, and I emulate bass on guitar and synthesizers, keyboards, and things. They're using pedals. And all my music is improvised on the spot. In other words, these are kind of live recordings. There's no overdubs or anything. So what you're hearing is basically what was coming out of my amplifiers. Right. As a result, I can create quite a few different albums, and the reason I do this is when you're improvising, you can run across these magical moments that you wouldn't have thought of otherwise. Then again, you could also fall flat on your face and it doesn't work so well, you know, but that's kind of the fun of it. I'm always surprised at the musical direction it takes me in. Alright, so what we'll do today is basically go through the album. There are 8 tracks, and I'll try to shed some insight into those tracks, what was going on and those kinds of things. Alright, and let's begin with the album cover. This is basically a public domain photo of a ladybug on a leaf, so quite small. And the ladybug seems to be carrying a guitar, small guitar, and that's the name of the album, is Small Guitars. A lot of it is, besides the picture, it was recorded on this guitar, right? The bootlegger Spade headless guitar, pretty small guitar. So that's the title, Small Guitars. And we'll begin with track 1. Right? I didn't name them. In fact, I won't name them until later this evening, but I wanted to do this video. So let's begin with track 1. And track 1, I can already tell you, features the Electro-Harmonix key 9, right? Kind of using the mallets type sound, right? So it changes your guitar into a mallets type sound. And then from there I added looping layers of bass and guitars and things. Let's take a listen to it here. first track, where you hear the key 9 mallet sound, I actually looped 2 loops, if you like, of playing the key 9 in different patterns, and then mix the 2 patterns together, right? And there's some delay on there as well. Okay. And then the rest of it is pretty much standard fare of bass and looped guitars, and they're basically ideas I put together. So alright, now moving on to track 2. It's kind of interesting because it's a slower tempo, but I also use swells. It's actually a line 6M5 that gives you a swell sound. In other words, you don't hear the pick noise, right? And so you just hear the sound kind of come in. The swell sound. And then there's let's take a listen to that. Bass emulation line. Alright, let's move on to track 3. And track 3 is kind of interesting because there's a synthesizer type sound, and quite frankly I don't remember exactly what I was using to get that sound. It's either a synth 9 or a key 9 or a combination of both. Electroharmonics, pedals, and of course adding bass and things. And as it goes on, obviously there's guitar solos and synthesizer solos and things. Alright, let's take a listen to it. And you'll hear it, right? Hear the repeating, because it's looped, repeating key 9 or synthesizer 9 type sounds. Alright, and that first chord kind of reminds me of a Van Halen keyboard track. Alright. Okay, now track 4 is a little instrumental piece. And it's not really improvised. I kind of worked that out ahead of time because I'd actually composed that piece for a guitar contest at a music store. And at the time I had written it, I thought, man, it's kind of hard to play. Whereas, you know, because I've played it several times, now it's kind of like, well, it's not that tough. And definitely used different sounds on there. In fact, I think I used the key 9 pedal on this one. So let's take a listen to it. And then I tried to add, via looping, a second guitar part. Several layers. Okay, now for the 5th track, I used a delayed guitar, which I really like, and looped that delay. However, tempo-wise, it's a little faster than I usually play the delay guitar. So trying to keep those in sync was kind of difficult. Eventually it works out, but let's take a listen to it. Guitar parts and synthesizer parts, ideas that are looped together. Okay, in track 6, same kind of thing, whereas I'm trying to increase the tempo, right, to basically a faster tempo than what I usually play, just to see what kind of difference it would make, you know, and that's pretty much what this track is all about. And you'll notice that it does use the key 9 sound once again. that synth 9 pedal, a little melody. So, and as you can see, the tempo was a lot faster than it usually is. And while I like the fast tempo, I think it takes all the different loops and things and meshes them up all together, you know. Personally, I like it a little slower, where it's more spaced out. Anyway, it's an experiment to try that. I did want to see what it sounded like, you know. Okay, and track 7 is basically going back to a slower tempo and using a lot of delayed guitar, you know, and looping ideas off of that. Okay, so that's kind of a slower, melodic guitar piece with a bunch of guitar ideas. You know, there's some soloing in there and chords and double stops and things. And that brings us to our last track, which is track 8. And track 8 really, it goes back to my earliest albums, like Volume 1 and 2 and 3 and so on. Just kind of more rock inspired. Therefore, a lot of times the bass line would dictate the tempo of the track, but also the kind of melody of the track. You know, a lot of times I start these loops with guitar, but on this one I started with bass, and you can hear that the guitar kind of follows the bass in many ways. So let's take a listen to that. And then of course I looped some, you know, delayed guitars and things like that. So let's take a listen to that. So there you've got several layers of delayed guitar. Notice that the delay guitars are synced to the bass part. Yes, back in the early days of recording with delays like that, you know, I would try to sync them, but I wasn't quite familiar with it. So basically, if they would sync together, I was lucky. You know, whereas now, most of the delay parts sync very well, and part of that has to do with a pedal that syncs all of my pedals together from Disaster Area Designs. It's called a smart clock. And when I didn't have the smart clock, you know, the delays would be at a different tempo than the rest of their track, which didn't work out too well. But I guess ignorance is bliss. Because I liked it at the time. Now when I listen back, I say, wait a minute, this delays aren't in time, you know, aren't synced to the rest of their track. So I've taken care of that over the, you know, however many albums it is I recorded. You know, I guess it was kind of fun though, you know, seeing what you would get as far as delays go. Whereas here it's much more synced together. So there you go. This is volume 394, and it's called Small Guitars, right? And pretty pleased with this album because you know, 99% of it was improvised on the spot, and some interesting ideas on there musically. And they're kind of varied, you know, it's not always the same thing. And let me tell you, because here, of course, I'm just giving you a little snippet of it. One, the sound is coming from the camera, right? So it actually sounds a little better, you know, if you were playing it from the source instead of the camera. Yes, and also the second thing is that here I'm just playing you snippets of each track, but believe me, there's an order to the tracks, and when you hear the whole track, you know, they blend together quite well. And you know, there's a lot of ideas come later in the tracks. Here I've just played the beginning of the tracks, and a lot of times the beginning of the tracks are where I'm actually building the loops, you know, so you don't hear the end product till the end of the album. Yeah. So I'm approaching album 400, if you can believe that. That's crazy. Anyway, but this is 394, right? So, of course, the next album will be 395 and so on. But I'm pretty pleased with it. 8 tracks is a good length for the album. Those kinds of things. So I'll upload it tonight and get it distributed. You know, and it shows up on Spotify, iTunes, Amazon Music, and so on and so on and so on. So very pleased there. Okay, wanted to share that with you. Alright, very good. See you next time. Okay, bye.